Hey ladies and gents, it's Zem again from Strike Gaming, and I'm doing another one of the iconic planes. And actually this was a review request too, to do the Mosquito from a couple different people, so I thought I would do the Mosquito. This is the Tier 6 heavy fighter for the British. This was known during World War II as the Wooden Wonder. In 1936, the British Air Force put out a requirement for a medium fast bomber. Unfortunately, there were several people that were like, let's do something better than that. So this ended up being into more of a very fast light bomber. This first production for this Mosquito was actually, it didn't fly until 1941, was the first actual flight of the plane. But this had been ongoing for at least 5 years, coming up with an idea for this fast, unarmed bomber. And it was supposed to be a medium bomber. This actually ended up being more of a light bomber. But this aircraft was ridiculously well engineered. And I'm not just even talking about the wooden construction. We'll get to that a little bit later. But this thing was used in so many different variations. There was a fighter version of it. There was a bomber version of it. There was a photo reconnaissance. There was a night fighter version. There was a fighter-bomber version. It carried torpedoes for attacking shipping. It attacked submarines. This was used extensively all over the British Empire, not just in Europe. It was also used in Borneo as well. And it performed ridiculously well in just about everything that it did. The Germans had a hard time catching it at altitude. It was just ridiculously a good aircraft, and in fact it was so good they actually tried to copy it. The Germans actually tried to copy this with this wooden construction. Now this is of course known as the Wooden Wonder for a reason, because this entire aircraft was entirely, vast majority of it was made out of plywood. This was one of the requirements for the initial medium bomber, was that it was going to be using materials that were not considered strategically important. And hence why this was made out of plywood, which made it extremely light. You put these two big, massive Merlin engines, which is the same ones that they use in the Spitfire, and you ended up with a bomber, to a certain degree, that in 1941 could outrun a Spitfire in level flight. I mean, and that's just ridiculous. This thing was doing well over 360 miles an hour. In fact, majority of its time it was in production. It was one of the fastest aircraft in the world. With that really light wooden airframe. I mean, there were so many different variations of this aircraft. Even at the end of the war, they actually mounted a 96 millimeter anti-tank gun on this thing to give it a try. It was, of course, tried. By that time, it wasn't really needed, so it was a one-off. But you read the lists of variations and modifications that this aircraft went through. It was just a fabulous airframe. It was, I mean, granted, it was made out of wood, but the things they did with it was just ridiculous. The standard Mosquito carried for armament was usually 4 303s and 4 20 millimeter Hispanos, which made it, quite powerful armament. But this mixed match, the radar fighters often, the night fighters often carried a form of a radar. It could carry up to 4,000 pounds of bomb if it was doing the light bomber mission. A lot of times it was at high altitude. Luftwaffe couldn't even catch it. At night they couldn't find it. And it was interesting with the wooden construction. They actually had a hard time to even find it with radar. So yes, fabulous aircraft. I'm sure there's a way more in-depth history out there. People probably know it far more better than I do. But I'm just giving you kind of an overview of the actual aircraft. The one we have in game is actually, of course, mounted like a typical aircraft during World War II, which was the 4 303s and the 4 20 millimeter Hispanos. This actually carries a 1,000-pound bomb load with two 500-pound bombs, and of course 8 rockets. This was actually kind of a standard loadout for this aircraft. It did carry rockets quite often, so nothing out of the unusual here in game for at least this aircraft. I usually run first aid dressing, control surface trim, and a fire extinguisher. This one I do have ordnance delivery unit sights, because I do use the bombs or the rockets quite often. And then I do also run reinforced airframe too. The third one I'm not quite sure up to. I do have on my pilot skills. I do have expert rocketeer. Once again, I use the rockets quite often. In the games, I don't think I do show a whole lot, but I do like to use them a lot of times against bombers. And if, for anybody asks, everybody always asks me why I don't have the pilot skills on here and the equipment on here or whatever. I have, I don't know how many planes. I'm kind of a collector. I don't really usually sell planes that I like, so I usually keep the pilots with them. So a lot of times my pilots are not really got the high skill levels on them. It's just one of those things, you know. In tanks, I have 400 tanks, right? And they all have the original crew on them. So, you know, depending on what tank I play, some of them have 7 skills. Some of them only have 1 skill. That's just the way I am. I know some people are like, what the hell, right? Okay, so that clears that up. So if you're always asking me what the pilot skills are and all that stuff, sometimes I don't actually have a whole lot of pilot skills on some of these planes because, you know, once I grind through them, I do leave them in the garage just to play them on occasion, that kind of thing. So pilot skills, equipment, at least give you kind of an idea. This is, of course, a heavy fighter. It is not quite as maneuverable, say, like the P-38F, but it does actually outmaneuver, I do believe, the German, which would be the ME-410, quite well. Yeah, 410, and I think the BF-110, if you do run into those, yeah, 403. So this one is running right about 455. So the maneuverability is better, a little bit better than Germans. It still can't deal with the P-38 if P-38 decides he's going to go, you know, dogfight with you. So you want to play this is typically the zoom and boom type of game. The couple games I'm going to bring, I might bring you 3 games. The games I'm going to bring you, I'm going to be playing this all over the thing. Everything from bombing to bomber suppression to dogfighting, the zoom and boom, all kinds of different stuff, just to kind of give you guys a feel of this aircraft. So with that said, I will be bringing up the replay right about now. Alright guys, back with the first replay in the Mosquito, and we are heading for, of course, the command center in the center of the map here. I'm going to go up here, get up to altitude a little bit. It's kind of a well-balanced teams on each side, so it was going to be interesting. I got a few heavy fighters with me, which is not exactly the best. It would be nice to have a couple light fighters here, but I can't always, you know, you can't really direct the bots to do a whole lot of nothing in this game. So they're going south to the airfields, and we're going to try to take this center cap right here. I wait till the other heavy fighters get in there a little ways. I usually try to loiter outside once again, away from this AA until I'm ready. So I'm looking here for the first set of targets here. Now you can constantly see me flipping right here. I'm looking at the stuff, and I'm always looking at distance here, and that's why I see the bullfighter right away first, and then that's why I'm dropping on him right away here. Unfortunately, they had enough light fighters here that it didn't work out so well for us, and they flipped the cap right off the bat. And at this point, I knew I fucked up. Life was not going to be good here. So I drop him, and this is the point where I know, okay, I got 2 guys on my tail. I kick it over to the top, and you of course see how fast this thing gains speed. Unfortunately, these 2 guys behind me must be using some sort of universal ammo, because I get wrecked from the actual aircraft on fire. Knocks out my pilot, blows up my wing. I'm so fucked I didn't even know where I was. I didn't know if I was coming or going. So they get me knocked out right away. They take the center cap. We have the airfield, which this actually didn't turn out too bad, because I'm going to respawn right again next to the bombers. And you're going to see me now play the bomber suppression role. You know, I wish I would have been on that cap. I wish I would have won that back cap, but you know, it is what it is. At one point, you know, when you see all the red, you're like, oh well, you know, I'm pretty much fucked, so what are you going to do? So I pull in here, give my first set on the pass on the bombers, and this thing is just ridiculously good at bomber suppression. And you're going to watch me just rip through these bombers left and right. Yeah, those 420s and those 303s, once you get in behind these guys, keep the guns cool, keep your speed down, trying to hit something with the rockets, but unfortunately I am just a little bit off and didn't get them. So back to the guns. Yeah, which, you know, you really don't need the rockets because with these guns, but it is nice to get a rocket or two into one of those guys and knock them out, literally one-shot them. So drop the other rocket because I'm not going to need it. I wanted to rebuild because I'm actually eyeing that mining facility right now that had just flipped. So back in on the bomber, finish these guys off, let my 20s cool down a little bit, get in behind this bomber, knock him out. And you notice I'm almost still full health. So flip up over top. I still got bombers incoming, and this, like I said, you're playing the heavy fighter role. You need to. This is your job. This is your number one job, is dealing with bombers when they do come up, whether it's individual players or bomber formation. I can't harp on this enough. Light fighters can do this, of course, but they will get shot to shit. They just don't have the HP to do this kind of stuff or the firepower really to do it, as well as a heavy fighter. So I get my first pass on that bomber, take off almost all of his hit points, flip around, and come back in here. Low health first. Try to knock out as many of those guns as you can. Take him out. Drop in on the next bomber. Yeah, that is just, it just whittles stuff away on those guys. So finish off the next bomber, and we actually pick up the command center. So this will be the last wave. I'm not going to have to worry about it after this wave. Nail that guy. And one bomber left. Now, unfortunately, at this point, they had taken the mining facility. So, this is what you're going to need to do. I thought about going center, but we had plenty of aircrafts there. My rockets were almost up, and this, of course, is, I mean, historically, this is what this aircraft was able to do. It was a light fighter. So, down I go. And, you know, you got to do what you got to do to win. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a heavy fighter, but you are carrying a substantial amount of ordnance, and you're going to watch me what I'm talking about here. I'm going to come smoking in here. I'm going to pick my first set of targets, which will be the something that can relatively easily destroy with these two 500-pound bombs. That one's already kind of messed up. I pretty much just got to knock out two buildings. Drop both bombs on it. Got my rockets up, and now, and not that the rockets aren't bad, but I tend to, usually if I'm ground pounding in the heavy fighter, I'm looking for stuff that I can easily destroy rather quickly, which is the bombs, and or I should say the AA mounts. You know, they're only worth about 30 points or so roughly, so I like to pick them up relatively quick. Get that one destroyed, and of course, as you see, I've already knocked out two ground targets, and I'm flipping these as fast as I can for my team, because very soon the mining plant's going to flip the 80 points 46 seconds away, so I need to knock these out as fast as I can. Of course, lucky enough I have a GA and a couple light fighters here that are working on things, so I'm working on, once again, on the lightly damaged stuff here and trying to get as much as I can, because we're only halfway through the actual cap. And this is actually one of my favorite heavy fighters for doing shit like this, because it does it so well with the ordnance it carries. It can get down here, especially with those 420 millimeters and that big ass, you know, those 303s. They just work it real hard. So we flipped the mining plant before the timer runs out. So now I have an IL-2. Once again, that's what this thing does best. Takes out big HP targets. So drop in on him. And then what's really nice about the Mosquito is it has a really low stall speed. So we're talking like about 120 some miles an hour, I think, before it stalls out, 121 miles an hour. So you can get down here, drop your flaps, lay back on the throttle, and you can get right in behind these mods, ground attack planes, and be able to pull this off. So we got 3 caps. We got the mining plant. The mining plant's going to flip in a minute, 1 minute, 16 seconds. It has no threats to it. They're chasing bombers. So now it's just kind of a matter of a mop up. Once again, looking for that ground attack planes. and using these big, beautiful cannons. And you're just going to see this guy gets pummeled. Boom. Yeah. He turned away from me, took off majority of his health very quickly. Now here I get a little bit, that Kraut guy in his F4 had shot me earlier in the game. He was actually the first one to kill me. So I'm going to get a little bit of vengeance, maybe I call it. I don't mind operating. I mean, people always say, heavy fighter, you need to be up high altitude. I don't mind operating at this level because I have a support. And that's really the key to being successful at, all right, there's Kraut Kicker. There we go. Yeah, I remember you, buddy. You and your universal ammo, you pay to, no, not pay to win. I'm just giving you guys a hard time. So, drop in on him. Yeah. And I take off majority of his health, and he's running the other direction. That's all right. He's actually chasing that guy. Flip around. Yeah. Finish him off. Boom. Get him. We flip the cap. So we're up 4. And, of course, somehow I lose my fucking engine. Not sure how. Bullfighter's running. That's all right. I got some shit for you too, buddy. And you notice, like I said, once you get the actual... For some reason, I'm all over the place on this guy. Once you get in behind him, wing damaged, engine damaged. Yeah, fuck you, bullfighter, and your rear guns. Drop my bombs. I'm not sure if it actually does anything. Actually, I'm pretty sure I actually might have just accidentally hit that. It happens. Finish the bullfighter off. Flip back up, and now I'm just knocking out stuff to get a little bit more combat points. P40s, he's fucking around. Yeah. You love them guys when they're coming straight at you. Another P40. Yeah, he's coming straight at me. Yeah, there you go, bud. Heavy fighter. Always go straight at you. Even if you don't get the kill on those planes, you're going to knock enough HP off of them that it's going to make a huge amount of difference for your other light fighters to have to deal with. So, that's the first game. I got a couple more up. So, about 13,000, almost 14,000. Alright guys, back with the last game, and this I'm actually going to play more as a traditional light fighter, more of an air dominance fighter, altitude, speed, all that kind of stuff. So you're going to see me play mostly shooting at light fighters here and clearing caps. And that's what these guys, this is what heavy fighters do pretty well. You know, I'm going to do a little bit of ground pounding. I think I drop a couple bombs, that's about it. I don't even think I fire rockets in this thing. And this is an externally quick game. Very quick, which is surprising because there was two human pilots out of that game that were other side were actually pretty good players. I was surprised how quick this was turned. So come back out in here, and I'm looking. Of course, the aircraft I'm looking for is always usually the ones that are going to be coming back toward me. These guys are all flying away from me, including that one. Get a couple rounds into him. Don't turn around. Check my 6, see if they're coming around. I got one guy turning this way. And that's when I know the red teams start coming in right in behind me. So they're actually down a little bit here. Finish off the boomerang. Gain a little bit of altitude. Flip up and over. The Yak 7's there. A67's there. Phineas, what are you doing, Phineas? Phineas, heavy fighters. If you look for aircraft that are not paying attention, A6M, he wasn't paying attention at all. Yak is right on my tail. And this is what it, you know, yeah, you're going to suck. It sucks having to lose altitude, but sometimes you're going to have to dive over. Drop me down 450 miles an hour. He can't keep up with me in that Yak. Flip back over, make sure check my 6 before I did. Catch the Yak 7 going up. And of course this thing is awesome in a climb. Nail both of those light fighters, they're dead. That leaves me the 2 ground attack planes, and of course I have the plane for the ground attack fighter, the ground attack planes. Pummel him, push on through, flip over here. Of course I want to take this cap because everybody knows how important command center caps are. Flip back over, got Alexander in front of me. He's only got 100 hit point left. He's down, and of course the IL-2 is coming right at me, and knock him out. Get the command center, and now I'm looking to gain a little bit of altitude. 1,000 feet isn't always the best, We've knocked out 3 caps. And that's about the time I noticed the 2 light fighters coming back in here, the A6M and of course the Yak. So I'm not going to stick around here and deal with that. I'm just going to gain altitude here and go play a little bit safer here toward the center where I do have help. You know, in the other video I talked about with heavy fighters, you can get down and play some of that dogfighting things, but only have time if you want to do that unless you have support, where you have 3, 4, 5 other planes with you, and they, you know, of course, if they get on your tail, you have support to get rid of them, and that's about the only time you really, if you know, if it's you and another plane against equals amount, maybe even you know, a few less. You don't want to be down there dogfighting little as possible. You want to keep your altitude up. Always looking for those planes that are running away from me. And really, heavy fighter play really comes down to his map awareness, watching and paying attention to where everybody is going, what direction they're heading, what can you get in behind, and use, because you usually don't need very much time on the rear of an airplane to really work them over hard. IL-2, he needs to die, come down through, speed out, and about that time I noticed A6M actually had come in behind me, and I'm going to flip back over here because I have all my fighters are right here. So they are going to be clearing my tail for me while I go out here and deal with this IL-2, finish him off. Yeah, you know, and of course that's why you have that big HP pool. A6M2, he's going to get wrecked because of all these aircraft, and of course, yeah, see if I can get this that A6M. Didn't quite get him. Game's almost over with. This, like I said, very quick game to a certain degree. It was almost not even that fun, really. F4F's coming. He's coming right at me. Pull up. I got a whole bunch of blue players with me, so it's not so hard to actually pull that off. So, but like I said, with the heavy fighter, games change. You can't just loiter at altitude. You can't always pull the altitude energy out of your ass against some of this. Sometimes you got to get down low. Sometimes you got to take the, you know, go after the GAs. There's no bombers around. You know, you can take out GAs better than just anything else in the game, other than other GAs. So yeah, being able to go down there and take that out. If you got to get into the mess of things. If you have other planes with you, it's not such a big deal to get down in there and play against them. If you got to make sure you're doing turns, make sure you're going out, checking your 6, make sure everybody's nobody following you. Once you get out a ways, flip over, come back. Pretty easy with the heavy fighters. I know people sometimes struggle with it, but it's just a matter of, like I said, map awareness. You notice there, I just kept constantly flipping until I find some target that's either flying away from me or flying at me, or not paying attention. And that's really where you get a lot of the kills and a lot of the damage, is you get planes that are not paying attention, where you can come in from the side or the rear and just, you know, pummel them and take them out. And of course, you don't always have to get the kill. I mean, a lot of times, most times with these heavy fighters, I'm taking off half to 3/4 of their health and never getting the kill, which is fine. You're still getting the lion's share of those points, even if you didn't get the kill. And it makes it a lot easier for your heavy fighter, your light fighters to deal with other light fighters if they're missing most of their health. So something to remember. Hope you guys enjoyed the review of the Mosquito, and I will be doing, of course, some more iconic planes here a little bit later. So good night, guys.